Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here. Welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So today's topic is going to be the subject matter of fragrances changing over time. Here's the thing about this. There's a couple of variables that can play into this phenomenon, so to speak. Number one is obviously going to be you've just had the fragrance for a while. It's sat on the shelf. You've sprayed it, a number of times. A little bit more oxygen has gotten into the bottle as a result. So that could change how the fragrance experience is for yourself, how you smell certain things. Maybe you smell something a little bit differently or a little bit more prominently than you did when you first got the bottle. The other thing is, if you're constantly smelling fragrances or training your nose to recognize the nuances in different scents, your nose changes over time. Mine certainly has. I would say it's changing all the time because I'm always trying to better how I recognize things with my sense of smell. And also, I've got 9 fragrances here today that I have definitely recognized some changes on. Now, here's the thing. These changes are going to be rather minuscule. It's not like, oh, the fragrance is completely different from when I bought it. Don't think that really happens. I mean, it could, but I don't think that's necessarily what. If any reviewer is talking about a fragrance changing over time, I don't think that's what they mean. So we've got 9 fragrances here that, for me, they've changed versus when I first got them. So let's go ahead and get it started. But before we do, as always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like this content, and please remember to hit that bell icon and enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, guys, first one's coming from the house of Brioni. This is Brioni Eau de Parfum. Brioni Eau de Parfum. All right, so what has changed in this? First off, this is a fragrance that features violet, ozonic notes, maybe some tonka bean, I think, is the sweet element used in this, and a good amount of ambroxan, giving a kind of a musky, woody feel. So what has changed in this for me? It's going to be actually I think it's green apple to be exact, but it's going to be the apple note that's in here. Now, I would say I pretty much got it when I first got the fragrance and wore it for the first few times. But I would say that what has changed is now I experience this kind of crispness that wasn't really quite there before. It's a little bit more prominent. I almost feel like I am experiencing a green apple that was just freshly sliced, that kind of crisp nature that green apple has. It sets it apart a little bit from like red apples and other forms of apple. And I feel like I kind of get that in here. And now, look, it's slight. Overall, does that change the overall experience that this fragrance gives? No, it doesn't, because that's more of a top note anyway. That's gonna fade away a little bit faster than some of the heavier notes in this. But other than that, fragrance is still amazing to me, but that's pretty much what has changed in it. It's the green apple note. So once again, from the house of Brioni, this is Brioni Eau de Parfum. All right, guys, next one's coming from the house of Le Labo, and this is gonna be Tabac 28. Le Labo Tabac 28. Special shout out to this fragrance for this video because it's the fragrance that triggered this whole video idea. So this fragrance here is boozy, rum-soaked tobacco leaves with a little bit of a smokiness in the background, or at least that's how I used to experience it. The other day I actually smoked a cigar outside and I just sprayed this on my hands because I was like, I want to smell this while I'm smoking a cigar because, why not, right? It's a tobacco fragrance. But what I noticed was this on my skin right off the bat was a lot smokier than I had experienced when I first smelled and got this fragrance. Those notes are probably already there, or should I say that aspect of the fragrance was probably already there. I maybe just didn't pick up on it as prominently as I am now because there's other elements that just caught my nose first. But since the scent is no longer new to me, maybe I'm picking up on some of the other nuances a little bit better. But yeah, I believe there's Gaiac wood in here and there's also some oud. I think the oud in here could be a little bit of a smoky oud, and I know Gaiac wood can definitely give you that smoky, woody feel. And that is certainly prevalent in this fragrance. So you now have a bit of an ashiness going along with the leafy tobacco that's in here, almost like a slightly lit tobacco, so to speak. So once again, from the house of Le Labo, this is Tabac 28. All right, guys, next one's coming from the house of Dior, and this is gonna be Dior Sauvage Elixir. Dior Sauvage Elixir. All right, so let me go ahead and state it now. This is gonna be the only fragrance on this list that I feel like it has changed based on just my nose developing more, and I think there's a slight change in how I experience the fragrance, and it's actually a negative outcome. The fragrance, I don't hold it in as high regard as I used to, which I've talked about before on the channel, but it wasn't really because of the smell. Honestly, I've gotten my nose on much higher quality things since I got the scent. So as a result, it's just kind of ticked down the pecking order in terms of where I rank it. But I still don't think it's a bad scent, but let's just be real. If this had come out today, based on what I have in my collection now, I probably wouldn't buy it. I'm just gonna be completely honest. Anyway, in terms of what has changed here, I think the spices have mellowed out a little bit, which is actually not necessarily a bad thing because this is very spicy right up front. You know, you got cinnamon, there's a licorice note in here. I think there's nutmeg as well, which I love cinnamon and nutmeg combinations, by the way. But what I feel like, even though this was clearly a lavender ambroxan bomb still, I think the lavenders come out a little bit more, and I think the ambroxan has really come even more so to the forefront in this fragrance, which is already, you know, something that's very heavy in Sauvage in general. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's maybe the quality of the ambroxan in this that I'm just kind of like, because I don't really have a problem with ambroxan at all, but I don't know. I just don't like it as much in this fragrance. Honestly, I think it has more to do with the fact that my nose has developed quite a bit since I first got Dior Sauvage Elixir, and I've got things in my cabinet that run laps around this at this point. So I think that's why it's fallen down the pecking order, and also why I'm experiencing it a little bit differently than when I first got it. Once again, from the house of Dior, this is Sauvage Elixir. All right, next one's coming from the house of Marc-Antoine Barras, and this is gonna be Ganymede. Marc-Antoine Barras, Ganymede. All right, so the change I experienced with this one over time, it's actually gonna be something very, very simple. There's Akigala wood in this, and I think I just am smelling that a lot better than I used to. I'll be honest, I can't remember what the characteristics of Akigala wood is. It's been a while since I looked it up, and I've never really smelled it on its own. At least I don't think I have, but I know there's, you got mineral qualities to this, violet, somewhat of an ozonic mineral, water-like quality, plenty of osmanthus, giving a bit of an orange flavor. There's mandarin in this, there's saffron. So pretty much everything else, including immortelle, all those elements I felt like I experienced in this fragrance to some degree, but I never really felt like I experienced any kind of dry woodiness in this fragrance, and now I do. I guess it just took some time for my nose to kind of experience that part of the fragrance, but it's pretty slight, to be honest. And I noticed this a while ago. Last time I wore it, that's the first time I really noticed it. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a little bit more of a woodiness from this fragrance that I wasn't getting before, but it's slight. Overall, the fragrance experience is pretty much the same, so it's not better or worse as a result. Once again, from the house of Marc-Antoine Barras, this is Ganymede. Okay, next one's coming from the house of Roja Parfums, and it's gonna be Elysium Parfum. Roja Parfums, Elysium Parfum Pour Homme. By the way, I just got my nose on the Elysium Parfum. At least I think that's what it's called. I might be mistaken. Smelled really, really nice, but that's neither here nor there. So what changed in this one? I've actually talked about it before in a previous video. So you know you got the citrus and the aromatic and kind of the woody, musky combination of just myriad of notes that this fragrance has. There's also a little bit of a fruitiness really kind of hiding in the background in here. It's gotten even more prevalent now than when I first experienced it, and the best way I can describe it, which might not sound appealing, but I don't really see it as a negative. If you can imagine like maybe a bushel of apples that you've kind of sliced open and just left sitting out all day and they've turned brown due to the oxidation, it kind of smells like that. So it doesn't smell like rotten fruit, it just kind of smells like fruit that's been sitting out for a while, and the kind of fresh crispness that it normally has when you first slice into it has kind of just gone away due to the oxidation. That's the best way I can describe it. I still think the fragrance is great. I don't hold it in as high of a regard as I used to, just because I've just gotten better fragrances over time, but I still think this is a great scent from the house, and that's the main thing that has changed in it for me. Once again, from the house of Roja Parfums, we've got Elysium Parfum Pour Homme. Next one's coming from the house of Ormond Jane, and it's gonna be Montabaco Intensivo. Ormond Jane, Montabaco Intensivo. All right, so if you've been watching my channel for a while, you could remember, should I say, when I first got this fragrance, I said I pretty much experienced it as a tea fragrance first, and then it turns into a tobacco fragrance as it dries down. Well, there's the change. I get the tobacco right off the bat now. That's the only difference. Other than that, nothing has changed about the fragrance. You still got the cooling air, like chili air accord, the spices, I think there's juniper in this, the dried woods are still there, and the leafy tobacco was always there. I just kind of get it right off the bat now. I don't feel like the fragrance has to dry down on my skin for me to experience it. So very simple change. Overall smell of the scent is pretty much the same. That's it. Once again, from the house of Ormond Jane, we've got Montabaco Intensivo. Next one's coming from the house of Thameen. It's gonna be Carved Oud. Thameen Carved Oud. So with this one, I've talked about the change I experienced before. So when I first was wearing it, it was clearly a fragrance that was a derivative of oud wood, just a lot more complex, maybe a little bit heavier on the woody elements, not quite as strong with the spices. But what I noticed with this one, also a lot more patchouli in this one, but what I noticed with this one after wearing it a couple of times is I kind of got this almost sticky candied sweetness to it that would show its head more towards the, I don't know, maybe the 3-4 hour mark of wearing the fragrance. There's not a note in there that necessarily represents what I was experiencing, but that's what I experienced, and I did not notice it the first few times I wore the fragrance. So yeah, that's pretty much how I experience it now, but or actually how I experienced it then. I would say even now, maybe that's even balanced out a little bit. I'm not sure what I was experiencing with that, but I definitely noticed some changes with this fragrance. It's an extrait de parfum. To me, extrait de parfums don't necessarily go through as many of these transitions. If you look at what I've talked about, most of these are either parfum or eau de parfum. And I find that I don't notice this as much with extraits, and I've got quite a few extraits in my collection. This one's like the only exception where I've noticed some changes the longer I've had the fragrance, but overall it's still relatively minor. So once again, from the house of Thameen, this is Carved Oud. All right, next one's coming from the house of Tom Ford, and this is gonna be Beau De Jour. Tom Ford Beau De Jour. So this is one of the ones where I noticed the change, and I would just call it, let's just say the fragrance kind of settled in a bit once I sprayed it a few times and it sat on the shelf. This one, when it changed for the better, because when I first got this, very strong, very sharp, almost pungent lavender in the opening. It was very intrusive, so to speak. And let's just say, once it kind of dried down during the fragrance wear, wasn't so bad. You got that kind of patchouli, ambery base that this fragrance has, mixing with oak moss, and I just love that combination. But the lavender that was at the top of the fragrance was very strong. It has since dialed down quite a bit. I don't quite get that same pungent reaction out of the fragrance than it was when I first got it. So I think it was just a matter of the bottle, getting some air in it, small dent in there, and just kind of sitting for a while. Had this for a while now. So once again, from the house of Tom Ford, this is Beau De Jour. All right, and last but not least, coming from the house of Xerjoff, this is Alexandria II. Xerjoff Alexandria II. This one also had, I would say, a positive change to it, or at least the way I experienced it, that made me actually like it even better. Now, slightly better. I would just say the wearing experience got a little bit more interesting. So for me, there's two types of oud in this fragrance, Laotian oud and Thai oud. I did look it up because I wanted to make sure I was saying the right ones. And the fact of the matter is, before, I would say I didn't really pick up some of the elements of the oud in the fragrance when I first got it. Mostly that was because I hadn't really experienced that much oud. I have since gotten from Arabian oud, blue oud, and the rare oud. The rare oud is Thai oud, which is in here. Blue oud is Cambodian oud, and I think Indian oud. So not Laotian oud, but let's just say after experiencing what oud is like in those fragrances, as well as experiencing real oud chips being burned in an Arabian oud boutique, it gave me just, a little bit of an idea of what oud can be, and I started to experience some of those experiences in this fragrance, which I wasn't before. I think my nose just didn't really know how to process it, and boy, do I love this fragrance just that much more as a result. So that's pretty much the change in here. Really was me training my nose and just being able to kind of pick out the nuances of the oud that is used in this fragrance. So once again, from the house of Xerjoff, this is Alexandria II. Okay guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know down in the comments below. Has this ever happened to you? If it hasn't, doesn't mean anything. This is not something that's guaranteed for anybody. But do you have any fragrances that you feel changed up on you, for better or for worse, over time? Whether the fragrance just sat for a while or your nose just transitioned and got a little better at picking out certain elements of scent? Let me know what they are down in the comments below. Really looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say. Thanks again for watching all the way into the end. Really do appreciate you guys. Please remember to be well and smell well. And I'll see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.